Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to study ordinal utility approach. In the previous video, we had studied the cardinal utility approach in which we could measure utility in quantitative terms. That means we were measuring utility using money and an imaginary psychological unit called as utils. Here we are going to rank the utility. Here we are not going to quantify the utility. So let us move forward. Now let us see what does indifference curve basically mean. So an indifference curve is the graphical representation of combination of two goods among which the consumer is indifferent. So can you see here that the consumer is buying two goods, apples and bananas, right? He would be choosing any one of the combination because all of these combinations provides him the same satisfaction. Therefore, we have made bundles of two goods here which is going to give the consumer same satisfaction. Let us see the combination P. In this we have 1 apple and 15 banana. It is going to give the same satisfaction to the consumer as combination Q with 2 apples and 10 bananas. So it is a locus of points showing combination of two commodities that gives the consumer the same satisfaction. It is also called as equal satisfaction curve or ISO utility curve. Okay, so all 5 combinations, they give us the equal satisfaction. These combinations are together known as the indifference set. If we take all of these 5 combinations right here, we could refer to them as the indifference set. As apples increase, banana must decrease to keep the total satisfaction unchanged. So now as we are moving to different combinations, we can see that apples are increasing and bananas are decreasing. Why is it so? Because we have assumed that the consumer is going to get equal satisfaction from the consumption of both these commodities. Therefore, in order to increase one commodity, we have to decrease the other commodity so as to maintain the same level of satisfaction. We have plotted this schedule, the indifference schedule, on this curve right here. This is the indifference curve. You can see that it is a locus of points. That means that point P, Q, R, S and T will give the same satisfaction to the consumer. Now, can you also see that this curve is downward sloping? We are going to read about it. It is downward sloping. Also, it is convex shaped. Remember this. Here we have taken the apples and here we have taken the bananas. So, in order to gain more apples, we have been decreasing the amount of bananas. That is why it is downward sloping, right? It is convex to the origin, right? The curve bows inward, reflecting diminishing willingness to substitute one good for another. Now let us talk about the monotonic preference. What does monotonic preference basically means? So a rational consumer always prefers more of a commodity as it offers a higher level of satisfaction. Let us see these two bundles of goods right here. Can you see bundle? So let us suppose that this bundle is A and this is B. Okay. Can you see that bundle A basically has 10 apples and 10 bananas and bundle B basically has 7 apples and 7 bananas, right? So which one is a consumer going to prefer or a rational consumer is going to prefer? It is going to be 10 apples and 10 bananas because it is going to give the consumer more satisfaction as compared to the B combination, right? Because it has more of both apples and bananas. Now, can you see this bundle right here? Let us suppose this bundle is C and this bundle is D. Okay. So, bundle C has 10 apples and 7 bananas, whereas bundle D has 9 apples and 7 bananas. Can you see that there are constant bananas in both of these bundles? That means that each bundle has 7 bananas. Only there are more apples in the bundle C. So therefore, the consumer is going to prefer bundle C over bundle D because it is going to give the consumer more satisfaction. So between any two bundles, the consumer prefers the one with more of at least one good and no less the other. So here we had 7 bananas and 7 bananas, right? So that was equal, right? So only the amount of apples was different in both of these bundles. So there is at least more of one good and no less of the other good. I hope this is clear. Now this is an indifference map. An indifference map is the family of indifference curves representing consumer preferences over bundles of two goods, right? So can you see IC1? This is the indifference curve 1, this is the indifference curve 2 and this is the indifference curve 3. So it is the family of indifference curves and it is representing consumer preferences, okay, over bundles of two goods. Fine. So infinite indifference curves can be drawn, each shows a different level of satisfaction. So if I take any point on this indifference curve A and here B and here C, so my point A and B is going to fetch me the same satisfaction because it lies on the same indifference curve, whereas point C lies on a higher indifference curve, that is, it is going to give me more satisfaction. Okay. Higher indifference curve represents higher levels of satisfaction since they contain larger bundles of goods. Only one indifference curve can pass through any point. Two indifference curves can never intersect each other. Okay, always remember that indifference curves can never intersect each other because two different indifference curves cannot show the same level of satisfaction. Now let us talk about what is marginal rate of substitution, which is MRS. MRS is the rate at which one commodity can be substituted for another, keeping the total satisfaction unchanged. MRS of A for B is equal to units of B the consumer is willing to sacrifice for an additional unit of A. So let us move to that schedule, okay. First, okay, let us see the formula. So can you see MRS AB? Units of B sacrificed divided by units of A gained, that is delta B upon delta A. Now let us find the MRS through that schedule itself. Alright, so MRS AB, fine. Now can you see how many bananas am I willing to sacrifice for a gain in an additional unit of apple, right? So I am willing to sacrifice my 5 bananas to gain 1 unit of apple. So 5, right? Delta B, what was the formula? Delta B upon delta A. So 5 upon 1. So we can write the ratio to be 5:1. Then can you see if in order to move from second to the third unit of apples, I have to sacrifice 4 bananas. So it goes 4:1. Can you see from 3 to 4, I have to sacrifice 3 bananas. So 3:1. From 4 to 5, I have to sacrifice 2 bananas. So 2:1. So this is your MRS. It is the rate at which one commodity can be substituted with the another commodity, keeping the total satisfaction unchanged. Now MRS measures the slope of the indifference curve. So the indifference curve that we were drawing earlier, the slope could be measured through the MRS. Mathematically MRS is negative, but for analysis its absolute value is used. See, because the indifference curve is downward sloping, you are always going to get the MRS to be negative. But consider the absolute value, that means the value without the negative sign. Now why does MRS basically diminish? So it falls because of the law of diminishing marginal utility. We have already talked about this law. It states that as we consume more and more units of a commodity, the utility derived from each successive unit goes on decreasing, and that is why MRS falls. Okay. As apple increases, their marginal utility declines, so fewer bananas are given up per apple. MRS gives the indifference curve its convex shape, which is to the origin. So it is convex to the origin. Now we are going to see the indifference curve analysis, right? But before that, we also have to keep in mind certain assumptions for the same. So first, that we are consuming two commodities. So the consumer's fixed income is spent on two goods at constant prices. Second is non-satiety. The consumer has not reached saturation and always prefers more of both the goods. So the consumer is not at equilibrium right now. So it is non-satiety. Ordinal utility, the consumer can only rank preferences, not measure satisfaction in numbers, right? So here we are not quantifying the utility, it just can be ranked. Diminishing MRS, so MRS continuously falls, which is why an indifference curve is convex to the origin we just saw. And a rational consumer, so the consumer behaves rationally, aiming to maximize total satisfaction. So a rational consumer will always try to maximize his satisfaction with his limited income. Alright, so these are some properties of the indifference curve. First of all, that it is convex to the origin. We just saw that because MRS declines continuously, the consumer gives up less and less of one good for the other. Right? We saw that earlier the consumer was giving up 5 bananas for an additional unit of apple, right? Then 4, then 3, then 2, then 1, like that. And second is that it slopes downwards because in order to gain more of one good, less of other goods has to be like the other goods has to be sacrificed in order to gain an additional unit of another good. So the total satisfaction stays the same. Then we also saw that in a higher indifference curve represents a larger bundle of goods, so it is going to give more utility, right? And curves never intersect. Two indifference curves cannot cross as each represents a different unique level of satisfaction. We already have discussed it, right? Also, there is one more property which says that the indifference curve can never touch both of the axes, neither the x-axis nor the y-axis, because when it is going to touch the axis, it would mean that the consumption of that particular commodity has been zero. If we were taking, for example, apples to be here, okay, and if the indifference curve touches this axis, that would mean that the consumption of the commodity which is apples has become zero. But what our assumption was that the consumer is basically consuming two commodities and has not reached the saturation position, right, which contradicts the two goods assumption, right? Let us talk about the budget line now. So, budget line is a graphical representation of all combinations of two goods that can be purchased with given income and prices such that the cost of each combination equals the consumer's money income. So, basically, it graphically represents all those combination of goods which can be purchased with the help of the consumer's limited income, right? The income of the consumer is being used to purchase two goods here, right? Such that the cost of each combination equals the consumer's money income. It is also known as a price line, a price opportunity line, price income line, budget constraint line. So a consumer can purchase only those bundles that cost less than or equal to his income. For example, I have 100 rupees. So obviously I can buy goods worth rupees 100 or less than 100, right? So similarly, a consumer can purchase only those bundles that cost less than or equal to his income. And these sets or these bundles are known as the budget set. Okay. So for example, income is rupees 20, X and Y are priced at 10 each. So the possible bundles could be that I am buying two commodities of X and zero commodity of Y. Second could be that I am buying zero commodity of X, 0 units of X and 2 units of Y. And last one would be that 1 unit of X and 1 unit of Y. Right? So this is my income right here, 20, and it could be spent in these three possible ways. Alright, now let us see the difference between a budget set and a budget line. So budget line basically includes bundles costing exactly equal to income. Okay, and budget set includes bundles costing less than or equal to income. Okay, position bundles lie only on the line and bundles lie on or below the budget line. So for example, if this is my graph, okay, and this is my budget line. So the budget line, okay, the points on the budget line would be, okay, let us suppose this is A, okay, it is lying on the budget line, and this is point B, which is lying below the budget line, right? So point A is going to be a part of the budget line only, but whereas point B is going to be a part of the budget set because it costs less than the budget line or the budget, okay? So equation is M is equal to PA into QA plus PB into QB, and here the equation is M is greater than equal to PA into QA plus PB into QB. So basically it's something like this, PA into QA, okay, plus PB into QB is equal to M. So this is your budget, okay, and PA basically represents the price of the commodity A, which was apples in our example, and Q is the quantity of the apples, PB is the price of the bananas, and QB is equal to the quantity of the bananas, right? And this is equal to the income. M is the income here. Fine. Here in budget set, it is going to be greater than or equal to. So this is the equation of the budget line and the budget set. So I just wanted to show you how the budget line is. So it slopes downwards, okay, it is a straight line and it is sloping downwards, right? So let us talk about the slope of the budget line and the price ratio. So slope is equal to number of units of the good on the y-axis the consumer must sacrifice to gain one more unit on the x-axis. The slope of the budget line is called the market rate of exchange or MRE. MRE is also equal to the price ratio of the two goods. So this is the slope again, as we were measuring in the MRS, that the number of goods on the y-axis the consumer must sacrifice in order to gain 1 unit of the y-axis commodity. Slope of the budget line is also called as the MRE, which is the market rate of exchange, and it is also equal to the price ratio of the two goods. So if the price of apples was suppose 4, right, and the prices of bananas were suppose 2, so the MRE or the slope of the budget line would be 2. Two properties, the budget line is downward sloping and it is a straight line since the price ratio is constant. So this price ratio is always going to remain constant at any point, okay, because the prices of the commodities are taken to be constant here, it is not changing. Alright, now shifts in the budget line. Shift in the budget line. First factor is change in income. Let us see what happens to the budget line when the income of the consumer changes. So for example, when income increases, okay, prices are constant. That means prices have not increased or decreased. It is the same as it were before. Only the income of the consumer has increased. So budget line shifts right parallel to the original. That means if this is your original AB, right, which is your budget line, so it is going to shift right. And if income decreases and the prices are still constant, budget line shifts left, okay, which is parallel to the original. New lines stay parallel because the price ratio is unchanged. See, slope never change, okay, slope does not change. Therefore, it stays parallel to the original budget line AB. Now let us see what happens to the budget line when there is a change in price in either commodity. So can you see when the prices of apples fall? Obviously, when the prices of apples are going to fall, the consumer is going to demand more of apples, right? Therefore, the demand is going to increase and the budget line is going to rotate. Okay, we are consuming the same amount of bananas here because the price of the bananas is constant. It hasn't changed. The price of apples has changed and therefore, our budget line rotates to the right in case of a decrease in the price of apples. Fine. And if the price of apples increase, it is going to basically come somewhat here like this. Okay, it is going to rotate left. And if the price of bananas falls, our original budget line was somewhat here, so it is going to shift upwards like this. It is going to rotate upwards. And if the price of bananas increases, so what will happen to the budget line? It is going to come somewhat here. Okay, it is going to shift downwards. So this is the rotation. So when there is a change in income, okay, when income changes, so you would find a shift in the budget line. And when there is a change in price of either commodities, you're going to see the rotation in the budget line. Okay, now let us talk about the consumer's equilibrium by indifference curve analysis. Right, we're going to see the budget line and the indifference curve together, and we're going to find the maximum satisfaction point, which is the equilibrium point for the consumer. So conditions of consumer's equilibrium. The consumer always tries to reach the highest possible indifference curve subject to the budget constraint. So obviously I told you that a rational consumer always tries to maximize his satisfaction with the limited income he has. So similar thing is written over here as well. Let us see condition 1. It says that MRSXY should be equal to the MRE, which is the market rate of exchange. So MRS XY should be equal to P of X upon P of Y, which is basically nothing but MRE, market rate of exchange, or the price ratio, right? It is the slope of the indifference curve, and this is the slope of the budget line. Second condition is that MRS falls continuously. The indifference curve is convex to the origin at equilibrium. So the second condition would be that MRS is basically diminishing. That means it is downward sloping, diminishing and convex. Fine. If MRS comes to be greater than the price ratio, then consumer would buy more of X. MRS falls until equal to price ratio. Okay. Until it is equal to. Fine. So the consumer would buy more of the X commodity until the marginal rate of substitution starts falling, right, and it becomes equal to the price ratio. Secondly, if MRS is less than price ratio, so consumer is going to buy less of X commodity because MRS would again rise until it would be equal to the price ratio. We'll look at the example right. Okay. Can you see the budget line here? So AB is the budget line here. And this is the indifference curve IC2. Right? Can you see that tangency at point E? This. This is our consumer's equilibrium. That means that it is the highest attainable position with the limited income or the budget constraint that we have. Okay, and if I take a point here, let us suppose A. So here MRS is going to be greater than the MRE, or I would say rather that it would be greater than the price ratio. Okay, so what will the consumer do? He would basically the consumer would basically consume more of the X commodity. Okay, more of the X commodity until the MRS diminishes and it reaches back to the equilibrium here. And on this point here, the MRS is less than the price ratio. So the consumer will decrease the consumption of commodity X until his MRS increases and reaches the point of equilibrium. So I hope this is clear. Let us see the comparison between the cardinal and the ordinal approach. If I talk about measurement, so utility can be measured in exact numbers, utils or money. Utility can only be ranked first, second or third preference. Util, if we talk about units, so util used as a unit of measurement, and here we do not have any measurement, okay, no unit of measurement. Here in these tools used are total utility and marginal utility, and in the ordinal approach we were using the indifference curves and the budget line. Realism, it is less realistic because it assumes precise measurement, right? And it is more realistic and widely accepted today, right? Because there were a lot of economists who thought that utility is a psychological phenomenon and it cannot be measured in quantitative terms. Therefore, this ordinal approach was considered more practical and widely accepted. So these are some of the important formulas that you can always look up to: total utility, marginal utility, then the condition for the single commodity equilibrium, two commodity equilibrium, marginal rate of substitution, budget line, budget set, slope of the budget line or the price ratio, which is the market rate of exchange as well, then equilibrium, indifference curve approach. You can try solving these practice questions, right? This is a numerical based question here. This is a diagram based question, conceptual, and this is a short answer question, right? I think we have just done it in this video only, the two conditions which are necessary for consumers' equilibrium under the indifference curve analysis. Thank you everyone. So we have completed this chapter, and if you have any questions or doubts, you can always comment down below. And we'll meet in the next video. Till then, take care and bye.